A very good morning, students. Welcome to today's class on retail management. So today we are going to start off with organized retailing. We were discussing this chapter called retailing in India, and in the previous class, if we look into the previous classes, we discussed regarding the retailing in rural India and different formats that you have got, like something called mandi, something as Haat, Mela, and the local kirana shop or banya shop, which we say in North India. Similarly, we discussed also regarding the emergence of the organized retailing in India, how organized retailing in India came into being, and what are the reasons for this rapid transition change from this particular traditional to organized retailing in India. So those particular things we happen to discuss. Now today's class, let us see what is the organized retailing and what are the advantages and how we manage an organized retailing. So when we look at organized retailing, organized retailing is like corporate industry or making investments into the retail sector. As I told you, retailing in India has been here for a very long time, but retailing in India has been confined to one particular caste, because in India, for centuries, caste has decided your profession. We have got a separate caste for each of the professions. Say if there's a cobbler, there's a separate caste for cobbler, right? Say if there's a laundry person, there's separate caste for a laundry person. All right. Say if there is a washerman, dhobi, we have got a separate caste for the, like that for various professions that we have got. Now each of this particular occupation is linked to a caste. And when it comes to business, all right, trade and commerce, there's a separate caste which is linked with the trade and commerce. So remaining people cannot do trade and commerce. Only those people, only those particular caste, now they are the ones who are eligible for doing the trade and commerce. So from those particular days, right, now we slowly started moving into organized retailing when we gain independence, right? And then this, especially in the metropolitan cities, new retail formats starting cropping up, but they were very limited, and most of them were the same formats. We did not see any massive investments coming even then. After gaining independence also, with the emergence of the organized retailing, we had very few multinational companies setting up their particular businesses here, and the remaining all other businesses were family owned businesses. And since they are family owned businesses, we did not see any major investments made in this particular retailing sector. Now, after 1991, with the introduction of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, we happen to see a massive change. Initially, in the first decade, that is in the last part of the 20th century, from 1990s to 2000, in that particular decade, after having initiated the LPG reforms, now Indian business houses or Indian organizations, they started making their investments into this particular retail sector. Okay, they started making their investments here. So the Indian organizations, the Indian business houses, they made huge investments in the corporate sector. Now, Raheja Group, they made investment and they start something called as Shoppers Stop, like this. And we had this Nilgiris coming out. And so this particular investments were being made. And similarly, we had supermarkets in the metropolitan cities. So they started coming. So after we entered into the new millennium, when we entered into the 21st century, then multinational organizations, MNCs, they started venturing into India. Now they started making their investments into the Indian retail sector. Right. So organized retailing sort of got its wings in the first part, in the first decade after LPG. In the second decade after LPG, now it started flying. It started taking off. Okay. So now let us look at the advantages of the organized retail sector. Now, organized retail sector, when we go for when we move from traditional to organized retail sector, it's going to be an economic win for the customers, because you see, when you purchase certain products like beverages, say if you take an cool drink, right? For example, thumbs up, if you're buying from the local retailer, now he's going to charge 90 rupees for 2 liters. And say if it is a summer season, is going to charge 2 rupees extra, 92 rupees for the refrigerator charges. But the same thumbs up, when we go to an retail outlet, organized retail outlet like DMart, and you're buying it from DMart, you're going to get a 20 rupees discount on that. right? And then if you're going to find, if you're going to buy 4 bottles, you're going to get a 5th bottle as free, because for that particular price you're going to get a new bottle, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So that's how it's going to be an economic win. Similarly, it is going to be a big gain for the farmers. Now corporate farming has slowly started taking off in India. So when we move into that, now we are going to move, we are going to do away with the middlemen. For a very long time, in case of this sugar plants that we had and paper mills, we had number of people in between, like we had the dealers, we had the brokers, commissioner agents. Now this particular people used to exploit the farmer, paying him a meager amount, and then taking a lion's share of the in that particular transaction, right? And then charging hefty prices to the multinational companies. But now with the onset of the corporate farming, now the organizations are directly purchasing it from the farmers. So when you start directly purchasing it from the farmers, now the farmer is able to is able to get a good amount, for a good bargain for his produce. Right, say say 5 acres of land for paper. Now you are coming out with certain plants, with certain wood, which can be used as a raw material for making paper, right? A plant, an organization like ITC, right? Now it goes for a leasing for 15 years or 20 years, and then it whatever similarly, say for example, in the previous case, for this particular 1 acre, if these particular farmers were being paid like 15,000 rupees or something like that per annum, right? Now on the same thing, now since we don't have the middlemen, we don't have these commission agents and so on and so forth, now it's a direct connection between the multinational company and the farmer. Now farmer is able to get 3 times more benefit. Farmer is able to get 3 times more price for his particular product, right? No, so that's how it's going to be it's going to be a big gain for the farmer. Similarly, now middle level customers also started increasing here, right? Now India, we see, it's a big boon to the middle class, right? Okay. Especially the LPG reforms have created the world's largest consuming class, called as the middle class. Now this organized retailing, I mean, you all of us know that middle class people are the most aspiring people, right? And this particular demonstration effect takes its perfect shape in the middle class, right? Now they are always aspiring, and they would always want to demonstrate the lifestyles, the behaviors of the upper class, of the rich class. So in light of that, there again, this organized sector, organized retailing fits in that. And similarly, it creates economies of scale for the organized retailers, right? Now since you're directly buying the produce from the manufacturer, doing away with the wholesaler, doing away with the carrying and forwarding agent, now similarly doing away from the distributor, right? Since you're directly purchasing the product from the manufacturer himself, you will be able to bargain well, right? Because you're not going to buy it in bulk, you're not going to buy it in small amounts, but in bulk amount, right? Say for example, if how DMart is able to give such a price discount, somewhere around 15 rupees or somewhere around 20 rupees on a 2-liter cool drink, is because all over India, when they are making this particular purchases, they are doing it in bulk orders, right? So they say, even if they are getting a 5 rupees discount on each product, say for example, if they're getting 5 rupees discount on in a month, or in a year, if they're placing order for 10 lakh units, right? Now 10 lakh in the units into 5 rupees becomes 50 lakh. Now that's the amount we are talking about, right? Huge gain, right? And apart from that, so since you are getting this particular five rupees benefit on that, now you are passing out into the customer, right? Similarly, whereas when the price of 90 rupees, now this it also includes the retailer's margin, distributor's margin, logistics cost, everything. Now that's the maximum retail price, right? Now actual cost of that particular product might be like 60 rupees. Now 60 rupees product they're selling at 90 rupees, right? Now this particular DMart is buying at 60 rupees, or they may be buying at 55 rupees or 60 rupees, right? Now he's putting a 10 rupees margin, and then he's selling it at 70. All right. Now when he's selling at 70, it's a high volume business, right? So when he's able to sell more volume, obviously the profits shoots up. Obviously the revenue shoots up. Right. Similarly, risk is also minimized because of this particular organized retailing. Okay, since more people are moving towards organized retail, and there are huge employment opportunities. Retail sector slowly, I mean, after the end of these 2 decades, and when it entered into third decade from 2010 to 2020, when we look into the third decade, retailing sector has become the second largest employer in India after agriculture. Second largest employer, from almost being nothing, from almost being confined to as a household business, to being just a kirana shop, to being just a pawn shop, being just seen as an occupation or seen as a small time employment, small time self-employment. Now it has boomed well, and today it has created, it has become the second largest employer, right, with millions of jobs being churned out because of retail sector, primary jobs as well as secondary. Now retail, now the backbone of retail is logistics. Now, so because of the boom in retail, we have seen huge rise, huge demand for jobs in the logistics and supply chain sector, right? The allied industries are also getting benefited. Okay, and now let us see how do we manage a organized retail. Due to increasing competition and the retail industry, it's very crucial that you manage your business properly and effectively in order to get more and more customers and their experience and convert them to reduce our customers. There are plenty of retail stores in every neighborhood nowadays. And to bring the customer back to your retail store, there are certain tips that each of this particular organized retailer needs to do, right? Because as I told you, now the traditional retailer, okay, now who is this particular traditional retailer that we're talking about? Now this particular kirana shops, they are very good. In fact, they're experts in customer relationship management, all right? Okay, so in light of that, you have got a huge threat from this particular neighborhood retail outlets. So how do you manage your own retail outlet? First and foremost thing is, we'll have to look into the customer experience. Okay, customer experience is again very very important. Okay, now what do we mean? What do we mean by customer experience here? Right. What I mean by this particular customer experience is, okay. So customer experience is very crucial and very critical these days in retailing. The days of customer loyalty have are long over, because when we were in monopoly markets, when we were a closed economy, we were having either monopoly and the maximum was oligopoly, right? Monopolistic competition never existed. So then they took customer patronage for granted. They could, I mean, sellers took customer loyalty for granted. But then when we entered into monopolistic markets, especially today, when you look into the consumer markets, and each and every consumer markets is flooded, with multinational companies, and then we have cutthroat competition, highly competitive markets with very less margins. So operating in such monopolistic markets, customer experience becomes very, very critical, right? If the customer experience is good, now he again comes back to you, right? So customer experience is very crucial and critical for retaining your customers. For customer retention, that's very important. And next is the inventory management, right? I mean, this is one of the very crucial thing in retailing, right? When the demand, when the demand for the product exists, retailers should ensure that the product is readily available. And if the product is not readily available, now the customer immediately moves to the other retailer, right? And one single encounter where the customer does not find your product, now that's going to be disastrous. Now the satisfaction, a delighted customer would move to a satisfied state. And say few encounters, not many, just few, 2 or 3 encounters, where he does not find the required product in your retail outlet. Now this particular satisfied customer becomes disgruntled. Now he moves into a dissatisfaction state. All right. So the tolerance levels are very less these days. So always ensure that you maintain the right inventory. Now, know those particular customers who regularly come to your retail outlet and then who purchase in bulk. Now, who place high value orders, high revenue orders, and ensure what are the frequently purchased products by them. And those products need to be in your retail outlet round the clock. Now, I mean, as a retailer, you cannot afford to miss your high revenue or high volume customers. No, it's a very foolish thing to lose high volume customers, right? So, inventory management. Now, similarly, some products might be moving very, very slow, or they might be seasonal products. No point in maintaining the stocks in high volume. No point in maintaining the stocks in more number when they're seasonal, or when when that particular product has entered into the decline stage of its product life cycle. And the third aspect is the visual merchandising. Right now, today in today's world, I mean, decades back or centuries back, hearing is believing. Now, from hearing is believing to today, in the 21st century, we have come to the state of seeing is believing. We do not believe what we hear, we believe only what we see. Right? So, appealing to the customer is very, very important. The product, I mean, the store might be this and that, but what about its visual merchandising? Right? How is it? How is it appealing from in the external look? All right, how does it look? Does the customer feel like walking into a retail outlet, looking at the store appearance, from the outside store appearance? And once he enters into your store, now how about the internal ambience? How about the store layout? How about the space management? Right? How about the lighting? How about the fragments? How about the movement of air? No, so many things come into play here in case of visual merchandising. And next is people management or management of people. Now, what do we mean by these people? I mean, customers do have some bad experiences, but how better you judge that particular bad experience, or how better you manage your customer, plays a very important role. Say in the billing counter, that particular customer is not carrying cash, and say his phone pay, I mean, your phone pay is having trouble, is not able to pay. So there should be another option, right? Maybe you ask him to do it through Google Pay or Amazon Pay, right? Or in the worst case scenario, you talk to the store manager, and he transfers from his bank account, he transfers that amount to the store manager. The store manager in turn pays to this particular billing counter. So there has to be some mechanism that needs to be chalked out, right? Say if you make few attempts, and if these things are not working out, and if the tolerance, I mean, say for after 10 or 15 minutes, when it's, I mean, when you're going nowhere, then you need to take a call, you need to take a quick decision. So the people who are working, I mean, your employees, you should train them. You should train your employees to immediately take some input. They take certain critical decision. Decision making is again very critical in case of people management. So when you do that, and when you ensure that the customer is able to take his product well, you're able to, I mean, sometimes it might cause some inconvenience, right? Now sometimes it may stretch, the time limit may stretch, but end of the day, if you're coming with an amicable solution, now he's going to be grateful for that, and he's going to be loyal. Now certain bitter experiences or certain troubleshootings like this, now this, I mean, through people management, we can turn these bitter experiences, or we can turn these bad experiences into something memorable, make them into some sweet experiences, something like that. And that's what people management needs to do. And finally, the time management and teamwork are very, very critical and important in case of this organized retailing. All right. So we should know when to launch a product. We should know when to change our store. All right. How to change the layout of the store. What is the timing of that? And similarly, all the employees should speak the same language. Now, one particular employee is saying 15% discount, the other person saying 16% discount. Right, when you're purchasing the product, the sales executive who's helping you in the aisles, in the shelves, Now that particular guy says, no, this is the discount. You buy two shirts, two trousers, the third one you're getting for free. And then when you go to the billing counter, they say that particular discount, that particular offer is no more valid. Now it has become obsolete. It's over. Now such sort of things should not happen. Same information should be circulated. And your employers need to have the right information. All right, they need to be updated regularly. Right? These things are very important in case of the teamwork. Right? Say this the electronic department, those particular people who are there in the electronic department, they're speaking one particular language. The billing counter speaking some other language. Right, and lack of team spirit or lack of team coordination between this particular billing people and other departments. No, such things are not going to happen. Right. And now let us look into the FDI, foreign direct investment in retailing. As I told you, foreign direct investment in retailing started in the later part, right? Especially when we moved into the new millennium. Right now, and what do we mean by that? We mean that foreign direct investment in retail industry means that foreign companies in certain categories can sell products through their own retail shop in the country. At present, foreign direct investment in pure retailing is not permitted under Indian law. The government of India has allowed FDI in retail of specific brand of products. Following this, foreign companies in certain categories can sell through their own retail shops in the country. India's retail industry is estimated to be worth of $411.28 billion. Right now, should have grown by leaps and bounds. So when we look at some of the timelines, 1995, we had the World Trade Organization being set up, and we had general agreement on trading services, which includes both wholesale and retailing services. Now, 1997, FDI in cash and carry, that is wholesale with 100% rights, was allowed under the government approval route. In 2006, now FDI in cash and carry was brought under the automatic route, up to 51% investment in single branded retailing. Now 2011, 100% FDI in single branded retailing. All right, but the government did not go up for this particular 100% FDI and multi-branded retailing, because we had many state governments. We have a federal structure in India, and many state governments opposed that. So at present, since some of the state governments were antagonistic, and they were not accepting 100% FDI in multi-branded retailing, this is restricted to 49% foreign equity participation. Okay. Now, when we look at the FDI in the single branded retailing, right, meaning of which is up to 100% foreign direct investment is possible here in single branded retailing, subject to Foreign Investment Promotion Board FIPB sanctions and conditions mentioned. Now, these conditions stipulate that only single brand products are sold. Products are sold under the same brand internationally. Now, single brand products include only those identified during manufacturing. Any additional product categories to be sold under single brand retail must first receive additional government approval, FDI in single brand government approval. FDI in single brand retail implies that a retail store with foreign investment can sell one brand. Okay, so we have this particular page in single branded retail outlet, Adidas, Nike. Okay, single branded retail outlets. Okay, and in the guise of single branded retail outlets, we have KFC, Drunken Monkey, McDonald's. Now all these things come under the single branded retailing. The next is FDI in multi-branded retail. Now this has been a very controversial since the beginning. Right, FDI in multi-branded retail in general refers to selling multiple brands under one roof. Currently, this sector is limited to a maximum 49% foreign equity participation. There are positive steps, and it will encourage international brands to set up shop in India. On the other hand, this will also lead to competition among Indian players. It will be the consumers who stand to gain. This would not change the market dynamics immediately, as it will take some time for these plans to fructify. So FDI in multi-branded retailing as of today is just confined to 49%. Now let's look at the role of information technology in retailing. The importance of information technology in retailing stems from the importance of data. Data is nothing but information that aids decision making. The right data in the right form to the right people can and at the right time is one of the greatest tool in the hands of the retailer. Information is always with reference to particular time frame. Let us consider an example of a customer at a department store. After selecting some goods, he proceeds towards the billing counter. Here, the billing clerk scans each product at the point of sale. That's what we call as POS at the POS terminal. The total number of items and the bill amount is added up. While doing so, he has so checked with the customer if he's a member of the store's loyalty program or not. The customer confirms that he is. Giving him the store card for entry, makes the payment by way of credit card and exits the store with his purchases. While to the customer, it is just a routine purchase. Let us look at the information that the store has gathered from this transaction. Now, it is like any other transaction that happens, all right? But what is the store gathering from this transaction? One is efficient stocking of merchandise. The items purchased provide information and merchandise sold in the store. This is the basis of the sales analysis and decisions on replenishment, reordering, and merchandise planning. Right. For example, data gathered in this manner may indicate youngsters buying certain styles in jeans or in colors or in t-shirts from the store. To service this section of the audience, the retailer may need replenishments faster. Now, the use of the technology aids the collection and transmission of information. The trends in sales can be analyzed. This helps avoid situations of stock out and helps this particular retailer. Right? Next is the collection of data. The use of technology also aids in data collection. Data can be collected about customers, their purchases, the frequency of their purchases, the typical basket size. Now, what are you going to do with this information? This information helps the retailer distinguish the customers who shop at his store frequently and also to reward these frequent purchases. For example, information gathered about a customer may reveal preferences for certain brands. This may be used for further communication with the customer regarding promotional offers. The data on purchase made is also passed on to the retail card organization for payment to the merchant establishment and also for billing the customer. No, it also leads, now the information and technology also helps in efficiency in operations. Now the use of IT serves as a basis for integrating the functions of various departments. When a retailer decides to use the power of technology to aid business, the investments in terms of money is usually high. However, the benefits of the use of information technology are many. As the process gets automated, the time involved in a particular task is reduced. For example, a person manually billing a customer for a purchase made will take a longer time as compared to a person who is needed to just scan the item using the POS systems or point of sale systems. Now, information technology also helps in communication. Communication within the organization can be faster with the use of softwares like Lotus Notes. Retail stores can communicate with each other and with the warehouses. This can be done 24/7 a day and 7 days a week. Now, electronic data interchange, EDI, can also be used for communication with suppliers and vendors. The information needs of the retailer largely depends on the size and the spread of the organization. Right? With an increase in the number of stores or an increase in the number of products sold in the store, gathering of information becomes crucial. Technology plays a vital role in gathering this information, making it available to the right set of persons. That's where this IT pitches in. Now let's look at the emerging trends in the retailing. There have been certain trends in the retailing in the recent past. One is mobile retailing, especially we find this in this particular areas. We find it in the urban areas, metropolitan cities like this. We find them there. So let us look what this mobile or van retailing, a trend that has started in the metropolitan cities. Now, this is a compromise between door-to-door selling and store retailing. Now, in this type of the retail business, retailer keeps one day stock of his merchandise and goes to an area to serve its permanent customers. Now, some retailers visit some areas which are totally new to them to attract new customers. This kind of products are sold in van retailing, can range from everyday household products to different kinds of eatables. Right now, so you take the products to the retailer's doorstep. Now, van merchandising is usually found in rural areas too, and it is of two types. One is static retailing. Now, under this sort of retailing, which is nothing but static, where you don't move from one place to other place, such vans are parked in public areas where customer traffic is usually high. The items sold under static retailing are snacks and junk food. Now, this this junk food vans where they sell snacks and all, we find in our own city, Kakinada. When you move from Sapavaram Junction towards Achampeta Junction, you come across, similarly, when you move from Banuguri to Sapavaram Junction, you come across this particular static retailing. All right, so where vans are parked in the public areas and where they serve you snacks and junk food. Next is the arriving retailing. Now it is where retailing takes its van to one house or another, selling merchandise, not groceries, home needs, eatables, like this. Next is conference, party, or event retailing. In this sort of retailing, retailer invites people from nearby localities, and after describing positive aspects of the merchandise, he sells it. Now, these types of get-togethers or events are organized by franchisor. That is nothing but the retailer belonging to a big organization or MNC. The products sold under such form of retailing vary from cosmetics, from small household items that are of low cost. Now, in order to attract the customer, retailer usually distributes sample merchandise or gives them demonstration regarding effective use of his items offered to sale. Right, and generally we can find them in big apartments in the metropolitan areas. So now they take certain occasions like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Diwali, or gold retailing on the day of Akshaya Tritiya in some parts of the country. Now these are the examples for party or event retailing or conference retailing. Now some events are related to food, like annual Mango Festival at Pragati Maidan, Delhi, is organized by Delhi Tourism in collaboration with the Delhi government. Every year we find this annual Mango Festival. Similarly, there are for certain food festivals, special food offers being offered on the occasion of Karwa Chauth, on the occasion of Navratri in India, right? Event retailing. Okay, like this. Now, the next one is distant retailing. As the very name suggests, under distant retailing, a customer places the order from a remote location by phone, SMS or internet or any of these particular things. And instead of visiting a retailer or instead of visiting a store, now the retailers provide home delivery facility for him. Now, during this particular COVID times, we have come out with this sort of retailing. Now in Kakinada, retailers like Spencer's and others, they are using, say if you are a regular customer of a customer, they go for this particular distant, but the name is different. Instead of distant retailing, they call it as a phone retailing. So they call you and then they take an order and then they deliver the product at your doorstep and you make a payment using any of the apps, Phone Pay, Google Pay, or Amazon Pay. Right, now that's what is a distant retailing. Now the next is the forecourt retailing. A new emerging concept in retailing is the establishment of stores in front of large buildings of high traffic areas. Now this concept caught public attention, with oil companies trying to allow private companies to set up convenience stores at their fuel station outlets. The aggressive players in this area are HPCL, IOCL, BPCL, and Reliance. Right, in their own retail outlet, that is in their own store. So if you go to HPCL petrol bunk, now they'll run a scheme on engine oil. Now every two-wheeler, they need to change the engine oil after a certain distance or after a certain period of time. Now they come out with an offer. They give you a free service. So if you go to a local mechanic, he's going to charge you some XY amount. But here they're going to do it for free, and apart from that, you'll be getting a discount on the product. Right. Now this is what we are talking about, forecourt retailing. Now for the space here, they use a remote space in the petrol bunk. Okay, in the petrol station, they use some remote space. Now similarly, we find that in Spencer's also, in front of the retail outlet, they place certain products, and then they happen to sell where they are having high discounts. Similarly, we also find that in Reliance too. All right, so these things are quite common. Okay. No, there can be certain times there can be cross-selling also. For example, Apollo Pharmacy are tied up and set up convenience stores at Indian Oil Corporation petrol pump outlets for supplying groceries and medicines. This experiment was well appreciated by business critics, but it did not succeed. Now, what could be the reason? The reason could be revenue sharing model. Now, similarly, Kishore Biani, I mean, prior to his sold to Reliance, now Kishore Biani, now he was leading the Future Group, right? So they had tie-up with IOC to set up in Big Bazaar premises. They had tie-up with IOC to set up their petrol pump there, right? However, things do not move as they chart out. So sometimes it helps, sometimes it does not help. Where does it help? It helps if the retailer is same. When you go for cross-selling, it does not help. Now, HPCL people can sell their HPCL engine oils for this particular two-wheelers in their petrol pump station and remote connect, because same retailer and same manufacturer, same business. But when you go for cross-selling, sometimes it backfires. The next is the trade parks, which have become quite popular these days. Retailing through trade parks is a recent retail practice, and it is practiced majorly in metropolitan cities and Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. Under this concept, business complex are being set up for promotion of retail trade. Now we happen to find that in Vijayawada, where we have electronic trade park, where they sell this particular white goods and electronic goods at a high discount. Normally, when you go to the store, they might be giving you 5% or 6 or 8% discount. But here in this particular trade park, they'll give you 15% discount. And on certain products, the discounts may be up to 30% also, right? And that's where the trade parks come in. And in Kakinada, we generally find this particular trade parks in case of, khadi products, in case of handicraft. Now, handicraft trade parks we find here, which are now Lepakshi runs this trade park every year. So in the next class, we shall start with the new unit, that is the unit 4. Now, I wish all of you a very pleasant day, and I thank all of you for your patient hearing.